Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Welcome to the Jello Jiggling podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Ward, and the Lakers have finally made a trade. Woke up this morning to D'Angelo Russell being traded by the Lakers to the Brooklyn Nets for a second time. I don't know if you guys remember, but back when he was, a young kid, still with the Lakers, they traded him there. And I believe they got Brook Lopez and the draft pick that turned out to be Kyle Kuzma. This time, a little different. His value's not the same. He was basically what I've been saying all season and all summer. Really, is they have to trade him because he's an expiring contract, and there's a good chance he just would have walked in the offseason. If not, tried to resign, but I don't think they really would have wanted him to resign. I mean, depending on what the situation is this summer, who knows? Everything's up in the air right now. This seems to be a step in the right direction. So the Lakers packaged D'Angelo Russell, Maxwell Lewis, who's a second-year player that they drafted, I believe, in the second round of last year's draft, who hasn't really turned into anything. It's probably a good move for him. Gives him a chance to, make some himself on a team that's not going anywhere. Like, they're more or less tanking, right? So they're kind of, it's a fire sale for them. They're just getting rid of their players of value, which is Dorian Finney-Smith and Shake Milton. Shake Milton just kind of was like a throw-in. He's a guard. And the Lakers also sent 3 second-round picks, which has some people pissed off, thinking it was too much for Dorian Finney-Smith, who's 31 years old and is essentially Vando. Is another version of Vando, but this guy actually stays healthy. Not a shot at Vando. I mean, he's just had some tough luck or whatever, but he's a 3-and-D guy. He plays well. He's been a desirable trade piece that teams have wanted to go after. Like, most recent news before today was that the Memphis Grizzlies were going hard for him. And they had, I guess, sent Brooklyn a deal or a proposed deal, which I don't think Brooklyn was. I think it was kind of a leverage play. These teams do that just to see how much they can get. They tell one team, hey, look, we need more because we got this team that's going after him, but yada, yada, yada. And obviously they like the Lakers deal better than Memphis's, whatever they were offering. But he's a pretty decent player. I mean, he's not like, oh my God, the Lakers are going to win it all now. It's just, or even be in that conversation. It's their better team with him on it, I believe. I think with D'Lo, you knew what you're getting from him. He's a very hot and cold guy, Jekyll and Hyde, which I've said about him for a long time. But he's hit his ceiling. He's not going to get any better. If anything, he's going to start to fall off. Right? He is what he is. He's a streaky scorer. He's a decent passer. He's a 0 defensively. And he's slow. But he has his moments, recently I think he had a 28 points and double-digit assists and off the bench, and he looked great, and when he looks great, he looks really good. But then there's other nights where he scores single digits and he's just not, it's hard to even notice that he's out there, except for when he's like jacking up air balls. And he's just, he's a good player. I like D'Lo, and I think, in a sense, they did give up a good player, but I do think what Smith brings to the table is more valuable than what D'Lo brings to the table, because there's a lot more D'Los out there than there are Smiths, because DFS, I guess, is what we're going to be calling him. He just does more, right? He's an efficient 3-point shooter. He's actually averaging a career high 43.5% from deep, right? He's a typical 3-and-D guy, right? So he's a better shooter than Vando. Defensively, I don't know. I'd like to see him play a few games and see how good he is on that end of the floor. He averages 10.4 points, 4.6 rebounds, 1.6 assists in 29 minutes per game. So he's a starter, right? Essentially. I don't know how JJ's gonna put him in. Is he gonna thrust him into the fire and have somebody like Max Christie go to the bench now, or Rui? I don't know. He might just have him come off the bench for a while and see how he fits or whatever. But we'll see. I mean, the next game is on New Year's Eve against Cleveland, which will be a great test because if you're ever going to need a boost defensively, it's against a team like that, who I believe has only lost like 6 games, maybe. Let me look real quick. I mean, Cleveland's legit. They're still sitting at the top. They've lost 4 games. That's it. Jesus. And they're on a 6-game win streak. I don't know if they're playing tonight. It doesn't look like it. No. So their next game will either be tomorrow or when they play the Lakers on Tuesday. But let me just look. Okay. All right. They're playing Golden State in Golden State tomorrow. So this is part of their road trip. But they just crushed the Nuggets. Put up 149 on the Nuggets. Jesus. And they've beaten the teams that they've beaten are nothing to be proud of per se, outside of beating the crap out of the Bucks 124-101. They beat Philly, who's better now, but still, flawed. Convincingly. I mean, they're just killing everybody. 126-99. Utah Jazz, obviously not a great team. Another team that's probably just trying to sell as many assets as they can, and the Lakers should come calling. I'll get to that later on, and then just beating the crap out of Jokic and co. 149-135. And then they'll probably do the same to Golden State because Golden State's just not the same team they were earlier in the season. And it doesn't seem like Schroeder's really done anything for them, who's another player that the Nets got rid of recently. I bet Cam Johnson will probably be next, or Cam Thomas maybe. Cam Johnson's a player the Lakers have been linked to for a while. I wonder if they tried to get him somehow too and add more. I don't know. But decent. I think it's an upgrade. I think the team gets better. The only concerning thing I saw is he's 31. So it's how much time are you going to have with this guy? And he's got a player option for the summer. So he could just bounce. He could opt out and sign with another team. Like if he's not digging what's going on in LA, he could just do that. And if he's balling, right? If he plays really well for the rest of the season, opting out would be the smart move because he's still a desirable asset. Like I said, these 3-and-D guys don't come around very often, right? They're very valuable because defense is like a lost art in the NBA now. So when you get a guy who can do one thing that a lot of players don't do these days, play defense, and something that every player does, shoot threes and at a high clip, he's extremely valuable. So there's a chance that the Lakers could lose him in the offseason, which sucks, which really sucks. Or there's a chance that he opts out and they re-sign him for, a few years and it's Vando 2.0, I don't think this guy has much of an injury history, which should be easy for me to find out. But spell his name wrong. But I mean, that's it. At this point, you got to take those kind of risks, right? You got to take these swings because the window's closing on this AD LeBron era in LA, and if they don't do stuff, I mean, because as currently constructed, I think the Lakers are a good team, but not a great team. I think I've said that before. they're just a tier below title contending status. I mean, they just keeps having these drastic highs and lows. It's like a wave. It's just, oh, they're good. All of a sudden, oh, they're back to being crap. Like it's just, and it's been like this for, I don't know, since 2020, I guess you could say, since after they won the championship. It's just been this constant wave of good and bad, and there's been the only consistent thing is the inconsistency. When they, like I said, when they're locked in and they play well, like they did yesterday, they're a good team. They're great. When AD's blowing up, I mean, they didn't have LeBron and they still won fairly comfortably. I mean, they kind of let the team get back into the game, but it still was a solid win, I would think. I mean, Austin Reeves balled out. This is against the Kings. They only won by 10, but they probably should have won by 25. The Kings were just deflated. I mean, usually when a team fires their head coach like they did to Mike Brown, and they did him dirty, I feel bad for Mike Brown because I've heard nothing but good things about Mike Brown. I think they fired him on the way to the airport after he had just run a practice with the team and spoke to the media about facing the Lakers, who he also coached and got done pretty dirty too. I think he got fired after like 6 games into the season, his second season, I want to say. Anyway, they weren't. They were just kind of flat, and I think De'Aaron Fox got hot later in the game because he was terrible all game. That's another guy who's been linked to the Lakers, but I don't really buy any of that. I think one of the other teams linked to him, I think it's all title contenders. And if I was Fox, I mean, I don't know, I think it was San Antonio was one of the teams. I think that would be intriguing because you can build with them, and him and Wemby would be a great duo and kind of learn from CP3. Anyway, that's a whole other thing. But see with Finney. All right, you know what? I'm not going digging too far with this. He's a step in the right direction. I love the fact that he's efficient shooting, 35 or 43.5 from 3-point range, 45.9 from the floor. He's got some size, 6'7", 220. I don't like the fact that he's in his 30s already. It kind of sucks. He's definitely older than I thought he was going to be. I thought he was like 27, but he's not. And then Shake Milton is the other guy that got thrown into this deal, and I don't think the Lakers have big plans for this kid. I mean, he's 28 years old. He's averaging 7.4 points, 2.9 rebounds, 2.4 assists in 18 minutes. He's played really well last 2 games, which is not saying much, obviously, which were like the best games he's played in a long time, at least this season, and did it, in consecutive games. He had 16 points against San Antonio and 12 assists, and he had 20 points against Milwaukee, and he went 4 for 6 from deep. He's just kind of a run-of-the-mill veteran, right? I mean, the guy will probably play for a ton of different teams before he's done, but he'll always have a job because he's just, a classic vet. Who has he played for? Okay, so he started his career with Philly. He was there for 5 years, and then 1 season, well, not even like 38 games with Minnesota, and then 4 games with Detroit, and then 6 games with New York before landing with Brooklyn this season. Wow. So this guy's probably so tired of getting traded. But whatever. I mean, he's fairly consistent. I mean, last season you kind of throw it out because the guy had no time in any of these, these teams. But with Philly, I mean, it's his average this season is pretty much what he's done his whole career. His career average is 8.5 points, 2.5 assists, 2.2 rebounds. He's not a prolific shooter, I mean, by any sense. He's shooting 38.9% from deep this season, and he's a 36% 3-point shooter for his career, and 45.2 from the floor. So it's not like, it's like they got a major upgrade shooting in the backcourt. The backcourt's the concern now, right? You lose D'Lo, you lose your one of your best ball handlers in the backcourt. It's going to put more pressure on Reeves and LeBron to carry the load back. They need another guard. They do, because Shake's not a traditional point guard. So I think if they're going to make another move, which I think they definitely should, you're going to need a big, and you're going to need a guard, and two guys that can handle playing time and improve both those spots, front court and back court. The two deals that I would think that you would make from here on out, or like makes the most sense, is either Jonas Valanciunas and Malcolm Brogdon from Washington, or my ideal, which I've been saying over and over again, is Walker Kessler and Colin Sexton. Now, I just recently heard today that look out for a Sexton trade, but no details on that. Nothing. So, but they have to be having ongoing discussions with Utah and Washington, and just trying to figure out what's the best, and probably trying to limit giving up those first round picks. I mean, I know, what was it? Shams recently said a report that they were willing to give up 3 first round picks, which I think is crazy, for like a one swing, shot at winning a title this year or next year. I just think it's too much. You're leveraging too much of the future. You just gave up 3 second round picks, and getting Milton and DFS or DFS. It's going to get hard to get used to saying that, but it's not a total game changer. I mean, there's a chance that nothing really changes. I think he's going to make them a better defensive team, and that is obviously a major concern for this team. But when Vando comes back, well, what do you do then? I mean, you got one of those guys starting, one of them come off the bench. I mean, that'd be awesome if Vando is Vando and he can stay healthy. But you've essentially replaced him with this guy. So I don't know. I am anxious to see the kind of impact he has, and I hope JJ gives him big minutes, or at least 20 minutes against Cleveland, because there'll be some good tests there, both in the front court and back court, in terms of what he can do defensively. But yeah, okay, so number one, I say Kessler Sexton. You're probably gonna have to give up more, but you got more of a future there. Both those guys are young. Both those guys will stick around. I just think that makes more sense. Where you go with Jonas and Brogdon, that's a little different. That's more of like a short-term, quick fix. Hopefully it works. And you don't want to give up much. And the thing is, you give up a first-round pick for those two, I don't know. You might get ripped for that. But that might be what Washington's asking for, because Washington's selling everything too. I mean, I think they're willing to trade Kuzma. I think they're willing to trade, obviously, those two. Who's the other guy? Poole. I don't think I've seen anything on Poole, but they're open for business. Put it that way. Let's see what else we got here. So, like I said, Finney-Smith can opt out this summer. Milton's contract is totally different. It's $3 million next year and 3.2 expiring for 26-27. So, I mean, that's nothing really. Let's see, Finney-Smith's best game this season, at least from my opinion, is 19 points against Memphis, 5 for 8 from deep, and 5 boards. I mean, it doesn't blow you away, but that's pretty good. And especially if he's really making an impact defensively, and he's putting up those numbers too. That's somewhat of a game changer. I mean, it's potential. He could potentially be one. And like I said, there's reasons why teams were anxious to get their hands on this guy because he just helps out so much on both ends. Let's see what else we got. So the schedule gets a little bumpy. Cleveland, New Year's Eve. And then they got, let's see, Atlanta, Houston, Dallas is kind of a little tough stretch. That's not consecutive. That's kind of chopped up a little bit. So it goes Cleveland, and then they got Portland, and then they got Atlanta. The good thing the Lakers have going for them right now is there's not going to be many games on the road, at least in the front half of January. What do they got? 10 out of the next 13 are at home. So that's a good stretch to get something going because obviously the Lakers play way better at home. Haven't done well on the road, but then they hit their brutal road trip. Where are we at? So it's 6 straight, and they play Boston in LA January 23rd, and then they go on the road. Golden State, Charlotte, Philly, Washington, New York, Clippers, and then back, ironically, on the day of the NBA trade deadline, February 6th, in LA against Golden State. So I would think Palenka just wants to get this over and done with because he knows who he's targeting. And I don't really anticipate too much changing. I think the whole apron thing has screwed a lot of things up around the league in terms of normal business around this time of year. So that's why you don't see these big trades like Jimmy Butler. I'm sure that if Miami could trade him, they would, right? Because it doesn't make any sense to keep a guy who's publicly said, I'm opting out, right, this summer, and I'm open to like going somewhere else, and has a list of teams that he's interested in, right? So trade his ass, right? They're obviously not going anywhere. They're trending down. They're not the same team they were a couple of years ago. But I'm betting Pat Riley and co. They put out feelers. Who's interested, who's not, and they got a lot of disinterested teams who weren't willing to take on a guy who wants $100 million, in his mid-30s. Who can be tough to deal with sometimes. I love Jimmy Butler. I think he's a great kind of old school type player. He's my kind of player. I'd love him on the Lakers. I would, but he's just it's tough for a guy like that to fit in with an established team like say Golden State. Houston doesn't want to leverage their young guys, which is probably a smart move because I think Ime has developed his culture in Houston already, and you don't want to bring in a guy who could be. I think he'd be actually probably pretty ideal because he doesn't mind playing defense and he's very passionate. But those two could butt heads pretty easy. I could see that. And then who was the other team? I think Dallas, but Dallas is now like they're without Luka for a month. I'm not sure. They might be hesitant to do things now. I don't know. So it's just different. So what I'm kind of saying is the market is what it is, and it'd probably be like this for all the way up to the deadline, which is almost a month away. So go get these guys. Go get them before the price tags go up. Like I said, I think it's a home run to get Kessler and Sexton. But if you can get Jonas and Brogdon, I still think that's pretty good. Brogdon he's good, but he just can't stay healthy, right? And you don't need another guy like that. And then Gabe Vincent got hurt last game, and we don't know what that is or his status. He could miss some time, so that sucks. You just lose D'Lo, and now you got Gabe dealing with whatever he's dealing with. I can't remember what it was, but it was enough for him not to come back in the game yesterday. And you could see it on his face too. He was kind of disappointed. And I don't blame him because he finally was starting to turn things around. And who else we got? So the guards right now, you got Reeves, Christie, who's played brilliantly. I think he's really turned things around. And I mean, obviously he's a starter, and there's been no question about him not being a starter. That might change now with Finney-Smith. I mean, I'm looking at the depth chart on ESPN right now, and they've got Smith coming off the bench, but Redick hasn't said anything, so we have no idea. Vincent, Reddish, Olivare, who they seem reluctant to play. Maybe he gets a bump. I don't know. I definitely do think you need another guard, though. You just do. If they're serious about this, if they're serious about going all in and competing in the West, which is just a juggernaut, you do need another guard, and I think you need another big. And these two potential deals check those boxes pretty easily. And one is for the long term, and one is for short term. Just depends on where they want to go and what they want to give up. I guarantee Utah will try and fleece them. Danny Ainge hates the Lakers. So going back to his Boston days. So he's going to try and get as much as he possibly can. And he's probably been on the phone with a ton of different teams. So he's got a good sense of the value of these guys, right? And I think they're open to trading a ton of guys too, like Jordan Clarkson, John Collins. I think everybody outside of marketing who they just re-signed, who they wanted to trade in the offseason, ironically enough. But it's this. I'll be honest, when the trade was announced, I felt nothing. I felt absolutely nothing. I wasn't like, oh, wow, that's brilliant, or oh, wow, that's not so brilliant or not so good. I was just kind of like, we'll see. Let's see how this works. I mean, so I don't know what to expect. I really don't. I like Dorian Finney-Smith, and I don't think Milton's going to really see the floor that much. And he might early if Vincent is hurt and misses time, but I don't know. I think that they did get better. I just don't know by how much. And it could be like, oh, well, they got better, but now they're missing D'Lo. They're missing that ball handler. They're missing a guy who can initiate offense and who can score, anywhere from 15 to 30 points a night, right? So we'll see. I think if they don't make another move, this was a whiff. This is a swing and a miss because it doesn't really do much. But there's still time. There's a month left. They make them another move, and they get a big, they get a point guard. I'd be really enthusiastic about where it could go if they continue playing the way they're playing. I think Cleveland is going to potentially be a wake-up call again. Like, okay, well, these recent wins are not anything to get crazy about, because once they play a team that's lost 4 games, it could get ugly. We could see another giant blowout. But if, say, Finney-Smith comes in and he's clearly changed the defense, especially against a good team like that, and then give them a run, even if they lose by single digits, I think that's a promising sign. But we'll see. I have no idea. I think doing this for so long, you kind of become numb to this stuff, unless it's a huge name that for a fact is going to change things, right? So, I mean, perfect example is I knew when they got AD, yes, they're going to change things. I knew when they got Gasol, yes, it was going to change things. No question, right? There's just no question. That's a no doubt move. But when they got Westbrook, I was like, oh my God, this is going to be a disaster. And that's exactly what it was. It just made no basketball sense whatsoever. So unfortunately that big name move is not out there. And if it is, I don't think the Lakers going to make that because they don't have the assets to get a guy, and I think Butler was the biggest name, and he seems to be off the table now because Riley said that they're not trading him because, like I said, I think they combed the whole league and they just weren't getting the offers that they wanted, or maybe they had to give up too much to get something of significant return. I don't know. Whatever the case is, this is it. This is the clock is ticking now. We'll have to see if the Lakers are serious about getting another guy like a Kessler, Sexton, Valanciunas, Brogdon. Maybe there's other options out there that I'm not even mentioning here. Those are the pair, the combos that I think are the best fits, right? I thought Valanciunas made the most sense out of anybody in the summer when it came to free agency, because obviously Kessler's not a free agent. But in terms of trades, Kessler, Sexton's the better move. I mean, by far. But it's going to be expensive. They're not going to come cheap. But we'll see. Like I said, I did hear about the Sexton thing, but there was just literally no detail. It was just keep your eye on it and see where that goes. So you got Cleveland on New Year's Eve, so another day of no Lakers basketball tomorrow. And I'm sure everybody's going to be tuning in for that one. That's going to be fun. It's probably nationally televised, I would assume. At least it should be. Yet. No, it's not. Well, that's a mistake. Wow. The only nationally televised game that day, if you call NBA TV nationally televised, Minnesota at Oklahoma City. That's a bummer, dude. Whatever. When is their next nationally televised? Okay, so the next nationally televised game, quotes, is against Atlanta on Friday. NBA TV. All right, whatever. Anyway, look forward to that game on Tuesday. It's going to be interesting. More ways than one. And there's no odds on the game yet. So I'm curious to see that. I wouldn't be surprised if it's double digits in favor of Cleveland. But we'll see. So until next time, later.
Hey everybody, I'm Trevor Sikkema, host of the PFF NFL show, here to tell you what you can find on all of our shows throughout the week. On Mondays, we have the Grade Release Show, where myself and Dalton Washman break down every single game that you just saw in the NFL. On Tuesdays, we have the Quarterback Breakdown with Seth Galina. On Wednesdays, we've got the Rookie Review with John Ledyard and the preview for the upcoming week in the NFL. So make sure you are subscribed to the PFF NFL show wherever you get your podcasts. Hey everybody, I'm Trevor Sikkema, host of the PFF NFL show, here to tell you what you can find on all of our shows throughout the week. On Mondays, we have the Grade Release Show, where myself and Dalton Washman break down every single game that you just saw in the NFL. On Tuesdays, we have the Quarterback Breakdown with Seth Galina. On Wednesdays, we've got the Rookie Review with John Ledyard and the preview for the upcoming week in the NFL. So make sure you are subscribed to the PFF NFL show wherever you get your podcasts.
Happy holidays. Want to give your host a gift? Consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing the show this holiday season. It really helps the show grow. From all of us at Believe, have a Merry Christmas, everyone, and a happy holiday.